Any day that I get to roll some dice with some good people, that's a good day. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another Glacial Geek video. I'm Phil, the Glacial Geek, coming to you today with a topic that it's a bit more on my mind right now because of what this month has brought along with it for me. As you've seen in my previous video about starting up a competitive Creations of Bile list, the question that comes to mind is competitive wargaming worth it? And it's a complicated question that everyone is going to have their own answer to, but I think that there is a lot of people out there who make assumptions about competitive wargaming that holds them back from finding something that they might actually entirely enjoy. Now, there's levels of competitive wargaming to my thinking that every single person needs to be gunning for the top table at LVO. No, I don't think so. I don't think that that would be fun for everyone. I don't think that that would be a goal that everyone should have or should want to have. I think that competitive wargaming, though, as a whole, holds a lot more nuance than just top table at LVO. Now, just at the mere fact of what kind of tournaments there are out there, you have everything from like 8-man RTTs at a local gaming store all the way up to, like I said, LVO, where you have nearly 1,000 players all gathered in the same place playing the game that we all love. And the range in between there is literally everything from 10 players to 12 players down to like 800 players at maybe like Nova, going down to, you know, a GT on a weekend that I'm going to this weekend, where there's 60 people that are supposed to be showing up there. You have the whole range and gamut between that you have players going to, and the size of these events. Now, something like LVO is big, and it is intimidating just in its size and grandeur and how much people talk about it. And I know I talk about it a lot because I go there very often and I enjoy myself there, and I like to talk about it because of how much I enjoy it there. But it's big and it's a lot, and it does have that level of accessibility where you need to be able to get to Las Vegas and stay in Las Vegas for a couple days. And a lot of the really big ones go over the course of Friday through Sunday, so you have to take time off of work if you're working Monday through Friday. And at the bare minimum, even if it's happening in your city, if you wanted to compete, if you lived in Las Vegas and you wanted to compete at LVO, you still would have to take off Friday to compete in the main tournament there. So there's a lot of these that these big events have. There's also the price that you would have to pay to get into them and just register for them, and putting everything together. And then there's the thought that you're going up against the top table at LVO. And that, I think, is where you have a lot of the rub where people go, it's not worth my time, it's not worth my effort, it's not worth me trying for this, because there's no way that I could beat Nick Nanavati. There's no way I could beat John Lennon. There's no way that I could beat Jack Harpster. There's no way I could win that tournament. If you are going to LVO to win it, then yes. If you can't beat them, then there's no reason to go. But that is not what competitive wargaming is to me. Competitive wargaming, to me, is an excuse to play 3 games in a day. It's an excuse to go away for a weekend, hanging out with people that are into the same hobby and the same thing that I am, and just hang out and have fun and play a whole bunch of games together and enjoy ourselves enjoying the hobby. I have never gone to a tournament and won every single game. I've never gone something and oh. Even at local RTTs, I haven't done that. This last weekend, I did very well, I thought, for how I was performing. I went 3-2 over the course of the tournament, but 3 of my top, and I ended up like in 5th place all told. But 3 of the top of my opponents out of 5 were 1, 2, and 3. So I had a pretty hard draw into where I was going there. But considering that, I thought I did pretty well. And I was happy with my results. I was happy with enjoying the weekend, spending it with a bunch of cool people, playing a game that I love, and I got in 5 games of Warhammer over the course of 2 days. Now, if you and your friends have the stamina and the mental fortitude to make yourself just play games in your basement for 5 times over the course of 2 days, then sure, you can get just as many games in with just your friends in the basement. You don't have to worry about going to a tournament, paying money for it, and doing whatever. But I don't know about you, but I do not have that. If I don't have the requirements of a tournament going on, I'm not going to play 5 games over the course of a weekend. It's just not going to happen. But going to tournaments, it forces me to do it because I've paid into it and I'm trying to do well with this, and I want to show up and I want to play those games. Now, playing 5 games over the course of a weekend is a lot. At the end of it, you are mentally drained and you are physically drained, and you've rolled enough dice that you could, you could choke a cow or something with them. But at the end of it, I feel like I get better at 40K. I know my rules better because I've had to look them up a couple times over the course of a weekend, but by the last game, I know everything that's happening there. It lets me understand what's going on. It lets me see other armies and understand how their armies perform based upon me playing with them, against them. And it also just helps me understand the basic mechanics of how the game works. What you need to do, the kind of movement that you need, the kind of strategy that you need, all of this target priority, all of these different things that you have going on with the game itself. You learn it over being forced to play that many games. And if you go to multiple tournaments, you start to get to know it better, and you have to get better and you have to get faster at it just because of the fact that you're there in front of someone and you have a time crunch that you're trying to get this game in. So going to these tournaments make me a better 40K player. They make me a better 40K player for my battle reports, make me a better 40K player for my fun games with friends at a kitchen table. They make me better because I'm forced to learn it, and repetition is how you learn things. Like they say, the way you become a genius is 10,000 hours of practice. Well, that's a whole lot of hours that you can put into that practice there over the course of a weekend at a tournament. And if you go to something like LVO, that's like 3 days that you can go there and you can play. Nova, you can play, over the course of 3 days that you're going there. And at the end of it all, you do learn how to play the game better, and you got to play games. I mean, there's no getting past the fact that you got to play games. And that's what, at the end of the day, it kind of forces me to get those games in that I'm not filming. Because when you're filming with battle reports, blah, 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 you don't care. But it's different. It's different than just being able to play the game, focus on the rules, focus on the situation, and enjoying the situation, enjoying the time there. Now, a lot of people talk about, it's like, oh, well, I don't want to run into all those whack players. Honestly, I have not run into many whack players in my course, and I've gone to plenty of tournaments, ranging, like I said, from small RTTs at game stores all the way up to LVO. And I've only run into maybe a handful of opponents that I didn't enjoy playing against. And honestly, it's not because of them being at a competitive tournament that I think that they were miserable to play against. I think they were just miserable to play against because that's just the way it is at that time. So I know that you end up seeing after these big tournaments, there's always that 1 or 2 situations that people are griping about or upset about that something happened. And then people jump on that bandwagon and go, see, this is why I don't do competitive wargaming. If you get, like at LGT, like the London Grand Tournament, there was, as far as I could tell, maybe like 2 or 3 things that became popular to talk about on the internet about problems that occurred. Out of how many games that were played at that tournament, that's a small percentage. And the odds of you running into that is so minuscule that it's honestly not a thing to worry about. And at the end of the day, if you run into someone that you don't want to play at and it just becomes miserable to play at, just don't play it, I know you paid your money to play there and you did whatever, but at a certain point, you just don't play those games. And at the end of the day, you are going to get out of these tournaments what you put into it. And if you go into it with earnestness, if you go into it with honestness, and you go into it with a sense of enjoying the game, 99.9% of the time, that's what you're going to get out of it. And that's what I've enjoyed. And I've enjoyed every single tournament I've gone to, I've enjoyed. Because the vast majority of the games that I've played at them have been enjoyable. And that's what it comes down to. And, people have bad days and people have bad moments and things do happen from time to time. But honestly, I've had just as many bad times facing opponents just in a game store as I have at a tournament. And that's the honest truth. I can think of a handful of times that I've had faced off against people in just game stores, either playing for battle reports or whatever, where my opponent just made it a slog. And then I've had a handful of times that I've been at tournaments where I've had the same thing. So at the end of the day, it's not that tournament players make it worse. It's that just people have bad days and people have bad moments. And that's the kind of thing that happens whenever you're playing anything. And it doesn't matter if it's at the LVO or if it's in your game store. You can run into an opponent who's having a bad day, or run into an opponent that's just maybe not a nice person. And that's just the reality of the situation of playing with people that you don't necessarily know. But reaching out, you get to meet a whole lot of other people that are just like you, that are there to have fun, that are there to enjoy themselves. And yes, you are bringing hard-nosed lists because you're trying to do as well as you can, but you do as well as you can with the understanding that you are not, it's not a win or lose situation. It's like, yes, you win or lose the game, but you don't win or lose the tournament. You can win the tournament, but almost everyone else, at the 999 people out of the 1,000 people that competed at LVO, do not win the tournament. And you have to understand that that loss does not mean that tournament was a failure. It does not mean that that tournament was not worth it. It means that they just didn't win, but they did their best. They had fun. They got to play a whole bunch of games. They got to meet and see a whole bunch of people, and you enjoyed yourself. And that's the benefit of competitive wargaming to me. It's not not trying to win. It's not doing whatever you can to win. It's not cheating. It's not pulling the curtain, the cloth over your opponent's eyes. What it is going to a place surrounded by a whole bunch of people just like you, playing a game that you all enjoy over the course of a couple days, and enjoying that and feeling fulfilled in the hobby that you go to. And on top of it, it forces you to paint up your army. And that is the number of models that I have painted, fully painted in my repertoire of models that I have in my collection that had to be painted because of a tournament coming up, is probably it's probably about even 50-50 on ones that I had to paint up for a tournament coming up versus ones that I just painted up on my own for funsies. So it does give you that sense of deadline, that sense of urgency to get your models painted, and does a lot to get your Grey Tide winnowed down so that you have fully painted models that you can then play with your friends in your garage or in your basement or the local game store, and then you have a fully painted army because you went to the tournament with it. So at the end of the day, the benefit of competitive wargaming is just the environment that it creates, that you have to have multiple games over the course of a day. You take a weekend to just enjoy the hobby. It entices you to fully paint your army because of a deadline that is placed onto you with that. And at the end of the day, you learn the game better by getting in all of those reps. So, do I think competitive wargaming is worth it? Absolutely. Do I think competitive wargaming is only to try to win? Absolutely not. I think you have to try to win, but you don't have to take that as the only thing that can occur to make it a successful weekend. So if you go into it with that understanding that you are going to try your best, but you are probably going to lose some games, but at the end of the day, you're going to enjoy a bunch of games, learn a bunch, enjoy having fully painted army and meeting a whole bunch of people, then at that point, competitive wargaming absolutely becomes worth it. Because I don't go to these tournaments with the understanding that the only thing I'm going to get out of it is a victory. I go to these tournaments to have fun, to meet people, to see people that I've known from previous tournaments, to have a fully painted army, and to be able to go and enjoy the hobby that I have for an entire weekend, just being surrounded by other people that also appreciate it. So that's my thoughts on what competitive wargaming, if it's worth it. Because like I said, I've had just as many bad experiences playing fun games with friends or fun games with people at the local gaming store for the battle report or whatever than as I have playing at tournaments. So to me, the downside of tournaments is minuscule and negligible compared to the benefits that I get from it. So to me, it's absolutely worth it. And I think people should give it a shot. And I think you should give it a shot. Absolutely every single person out there, I think, should give it a shot, at least once, just to see what it's like to go to a tournament, to play multiple games over the course of a day, and learn the rules, and just get a sense of what it's like to be surrounded in a room full of a bunch of other nerds like you, enjoying this game that we do. So, do I think it's worth it? Absolutely. Do I think it's worth it for you? Absolutely. If you decide that it's not worth it for you after giving it a shot, then more power to you. You do not have to go to another one. You should not go to another one if it just brings you sorrow and pain. You should go to them to find fulfillment, to find the joy that this hobby is supposed to be. And if you are being held back from trying it because you're afraid of all the whack players that are going to be there, then I can personally attest to having been to some of the biggest tournaments in the world, to some of the smallest tournaments in the world, that the odds of you finding these whack jerks is going to be minuscule, and you will be able to go have fun. Plus, the benefit of going to even bigger tournaments is that after the first couple games, it kind of segments out and striates out, so you're probably going to be playing people that are on your same level there and looking for the same kind of enjoyment as you would. So if you are really good, you're going to be playing the really good players, and if you're not very good, you're going to be playing the not very good players, and you guys can have fun together and enjoy the weekend together down there in the bottom tables. And it's totally worth it, and you get just as much fulfillment out of it as if you placed like 4th. So, yeah, let me know down below what you think. Do you enjoy going to competitive war games? Do you do competitive tournaments? Do you enjoy playing Warhammer on a competitive level? Do you enjoy just going to tournaments? You know, what do you put into it, and what do you get out of it? And what experiences have you had personally? Not ones that you've heard from other people, because those small number of times that do get amplified because of the reality of the echo chamber of the internet, I don't think give a proper judgment of what these tournaments really provide and what the experience at these tournaments really is. I think that you would be if you think that tournaments are just full of whack players, I think you'd be very surprised if you just showed up to one. So let me know down below what you think about that. Keep it going. You know, share, like, and subscribe as you always do with these videos. I really appreciate all the support that you guys do. And let me know what you think about all of this. And if you think maybe I'm just a whack player trying to get all of you back in here so I can just beat you mercilessly and get all the points for myself. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you very much. I hope you all enjoyed this. I certainly have. I have been Phil, the Glacial Geek, as always. And until next time, stay safe and have fun.